Director Dodd.
I'm here.
Director Decker.
I'm here.
Director Penrose.
Here.
Director Roddick.
Here.
Director Clark.
Present.
Chair Slater Carter.
Present. For those who are watching on Zoom, which would be everybody, you're going to see me speaking through the phone because I'm on a ski holiday, and the winds over the mountains are bad. So you can see my face and read my lips, or listen to the green icon, so you will be able to hear me. But I think I'm hoping this works. Anyway, next item is public comment, oral communications for those not on the agenda. Pippin, could you see if anyone has any I'm sorry, Pippin, my apologies, it's a long day. Could you see if there's anybody
Yes.
with their hand up?
Greg has his hand raised.
Yeah, I want to comment on something that's in the consent agenda, if I could. I'm not asking for it to be pulled, but I'm following up on comments I made to the board previous meetings about the WIMPs here in Northern California not wanting to meet in person due to risk of long COVID and other health things. Jeremy's pointed out that our brave companions down in Southern California are already doing it. I prepared emails to the county and sent them. I think I mentioned that, but just recently I met with the staffs of Senators Becker and Assemblyman Berman at that event that Deborah and I and others were at, Deborah Penrose. I discussed the real risk to me is long COVID. I cited the study of 440,000 veterans and the doubling and tripling of incidents of long COVID upon repeated exposure. And so I've asked for a waiver for people with immunocompromised spouses. And I sent you a copy of one of the emails I sent and a favorable reply I got from Senator Becker's chief staff person. I also received a favorable support comment from Mike Callaghan's chief of staff saying they will support legislation if it's prepared at the state level. And of course, I wrote Governor Newsom, but the way you do that is filling out a webpage so you don't get a copy of your email. Anyway, I just wanted you to be aware that I haven't given up on this issue. And if the board and your parent agencies or city think that it's a good thing to allow immunocompromised people with immunocompromised family members to not have to attend in person, then it's a good time, I think, to support it by writing those people that I did. I actually think we might get something to happen. Thanks.
Greg, could you send us that information? I'd like to put it as an agenda item, maybe on the consent agenda at our next meeting.
I believe I've sent it to everybody. I just realized I forgot Jeremy and Deborah Ruddick, so they got it seconds ago. I believe all the rest of you already have it.
Yeah.
If you don't,
okay, I haven't
let
checked.
me know.
I haven't checked my
first time.
What, Deborah?
I actually got it the first time you sent it.
Good. Well, we're not going to discuss it now, but if we want to pull it from the next consent agenda, that would be good. Or not, just approving it would be good too. Let's move on to the consent agenda for tonight. There are 4 items. Approve the minutes of January 9, 2023. Approve the disbursements for February 13, 2023. Monthly revenue and expense report for period ending December 31. Ratification of resolution 2-2023 for the continuation of virtual teleconference meetings per Assembly Bill 361 for the period February 14th, 2023 through February 28th, 2023, due to the continuing state of emergency declared by the governor related to preventing the spread of COVID-19 and pursuant to the government code section 54953 parens E. So do we have a motion, or does somebody want an item pulled?
I would like to say something here or ask a question. I realize that the aging report under item C is old. It's from the 31st of December, but I would like to find out why are there two invoices outstanding for 60 to 90 days, one for $13,923 from Half Moon Bay, which is a pass-through invoice, and one for the test consulting to El Granada, which is a $2,700 invoice.
Okay, generally for discussion on consent agenda, we move it to the end of the agenda. So,
Madam Chair, do you want to just pull it off there and then approve the rest and
that's
discuss it?
what I say. We'll pull it off and move it to the end of the regular agenda. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
A second.
Thank you. And the second?
I seconded.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Director Dye,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Penrose,
Aye.
Director Ruddock,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Chair Slater Carter.
Yes. And we will save item C for the end of the regular agenda. Moving on to regular business, we have 4 items. The first will be review and possible action recognizing Rick Lohman for his decades of outstanding and dedicated service to our community. Ishan.
Yeah, so Rick was appointed to SAM in Jan 2005 and was represented by GCSD, and later on he was representing MWFC. He served on the SAM board from 2005 till 2023. He was a very active director on the SAM board. We have seen him on the board as chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. His passion was recycled water, as you all know, and this made him play an active role on the ad hoc recycled water committee. I got to know Rick when I was recruited at SAM. He was the chair at that time and explained to me the situation that was at SAM with the then GM leaving and how he had taken charge. He made things very, very comfortable for me to move from Southern California to out here. So much so that he would call me, reach out to me, and wanted to know if I needed any help from realtors, setting up, help me with housing and all stuff like that. It was making it very easy to make sure that the move is very, very comfortable for me. He was very good at everything and always had a smile on his face. We at SAM love him and will miss him. Thank you.
Do we have any comments from the board? Please raise your hand, Barbara.
Well, Rick and I became very good friends. He was the one, I got to know him through Barbara, his wife, who was involved with the Midcoastside Land Trust because I was volunteering there, but I met Rick. And he's the one who convinced me through his passion and enthusiasm to talk me into volunteering to fill his spot on the GCSD board. And since then, we were good friends, and he was one of the smartest people I ever met. Caltech, Air Force, did all this, great career. I mean, it's the kind of person that we all really want representing us on a public agency, because he brought that wealth of experience and that passion about what he cared about to what he did. So I think it's a big loss for all of us, and I am really happy to see us. I mean, if there's a motion to be made, I would be very honored to move that we approve the resolution that's been proposed. I feel a little bit like many of you knew him for many more years than I did, but I have to say those years left me full of such respect and admiration that I feel that this action is very warranted. So thank you.
Matthew.
Thank you. Rick was active even longer than Kishan's description and Kishan's summary and Barbara's as well are both very accurate. Rick was a really nice guy. He was very involved with his community. He was, he paid attention to a lot of different issues. Even before he was on the GCSD board back into the 90s, he did rile up some certain interests here on the coast. And I think that just caused him to redouble his efforts, but it also caused him to redouble his efforts to listen to the people who disagreed with him. And he was very good about that. And he would talk with anyone and communicate what he thought and consider what the other people had to say. And eventually he got to where he was sending out emails that were signed at the bottom by Rick Lohman, something like advocate for responsible development based on approval by the community opinion. And that's what he always worked for. And then when he came on the GCSD board, he, again, as was mentioned, brought up recycled water. Why are we so far behind? And that was one of his pet projects all the time. And he was a very valuable member at GCSD, and I was sad to see him go, but he went just to the right place, next district north. And I think represented himself and his district up there and was a great SAM representative as well. And I will miss him a lot because he came to be a good and longtime friend of mine as well. And I'll be honored to second the resolution to recognize Rick as a community member and as a person. Thanks.
Thank you. Now we have a motion and a second. And
no, I have a comment to make.
Yes, no, I'm not calling vote.
I wanted to reiterate what everyone else has said before me. He was a hardworking, honest, intelligent fellow with a good sense of humor and a great love of his community and the coastside here, and took his responsibilities seriously, took them to heart, and worked hard. So I'm going to miss him.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? I don't see any other hands. I will make a comment. I knew Rick when just after he and Barb moved to the community because we were working on founding at the old 3-0. We were looking at some of the development proposals that were going in on the coast side, and we were totally shocked and amazed at how bad they were, how in conflict with the zoning and planning and LCP ordinances they were. And we decided to start a planning and zoning committee. And we managed through Rick's hard work and the rest of the community members, we actually got a design review committee going. Parenthetically, we need members, please consider it. But we were able to stop the horrendous development that was going on, totally contravening our zoning and our planning. And there are a few examples of what the county allowed to go in. I won't speak of them here, but they continue to be eyesores and hazards. And so the community was right because the community knows the circumstances and is aware of things. The county has different things it needs to pay attention to. But Rick had a phenomenal sense of humor. He had a phenomenal way of bringing what seemed like extraneous things into the conversation and making them relevant. And we are all going to miss Rick in so many different ways on the coast side. And he, I believe, will remain an exemplary community member. And having served with him on MCC, MWSD, and SAM, I know how dedicated and thorough he was. He was just wonderful. So, along with others, we're going to miss him. Peter.
I just want to echo everything that has been said by saying that I know Rick for only 3 years in my function at MWSD. And I felt that he was so honest and had such a wonderful sense of humor and always was able to bring up subjects that we hadn't thought about yet in our decision-making process. And I will really miss him.
Thank you. Any more comments? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve the resolution from Barbara Dye, a second from Matthew Clark, and could we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Dye?
Aye.
Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Penrose?
Aye.
Director Ruddock?
Aye.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Chair Slater Carter?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, everyone. And so Peter has been appointed by MWSD to be our, he's not a replacement for Rick. He is our new addition to the SAM board. And we're very thankful that Peter has agreed to do that. And he will be a great asset. And I thank Peter for taking this on. Item B on regular business, ratify the contract with Bay Pacific to complete the emergency repair of the force main in the amount not to exceed $447,000.
Thank you. So on January 1st of this year, it was noted that there was sewage leaking between California and Valimar Street along Highway 1. Then we found out that this leak was coming from Sam's Montana force main. And therefore we called one of the local contractors. They started excavating and found that there was a leak coming from the force main. And we tried to fix the leak. We opened it up, we excavated, opened it, and found that the leaks were actually also moving more downstream, and we found several leaks in the pipeline. And therefore, the local contractor had to put an above ground temporary bypass of approximately 300 feet of pipeline, and this stopped the leak immediately. So the overflow was at two locations. One was along the Highway 1 by the two houses on Winky Way, and at the manholes outside Montana Pump Station. Staff then reached out to the pipeline contractor, Bay Pacific Pipelines. They were the ones who had actually laid out the pipelines on the Granada section of the force main a couple of years back. So we reached out to them, obtained a quote, and awarded the contract on an emergency basis. And that was to fix the pipeline to a length of about 800 feet. So as we speak now, the force main has been completed, and we have replaced the above ground temporary bypass to a permanent below the ground or underground pipeline, buried pipeline for about 850 feet. And that job has been completed last week, and the contractor is in the process of cleaning up. So this item is brought to the board to ratify the contract because the general manager was allowed to get the job going on an emergency basis based on the special board meeting, which was conducted on January 4th. and where the board adopted a resolution and provided authority to the general manager to undertake such future emergency procurements as necessary. So it has been brought to the board to ratify. Staff is here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from the board? Barbara.
I'd just like to say, I think it's laudable that Sam has a relationship with this contractor based on the previous work that they've done, that they were able to come and help under, very exigent circumstances to help us. And I think it makes sense to go ahead. I mean, I'm glad that you went ahead and did this and did the emergency repair. And I would like to move approval of the ratification of the contract.
I'll second that.
Julia. A second, a motion by Barbara Dye, a second by Peter Decker, a comment by Matthew Clark.
I have a question. I don't think I saw on consent item B, the disbursements, any payments to Bay Pacific Pipeline yet? And is that true that that Sam hasn't been billed or paid them for the work they've done so far yet?
Yeah, that's true. Typically, the contractor submits his invoice after he completes a job, since they're just cleaning up and not completed as yet. They're just in the process of demobilizing. It might probably come up, the invoice might show up either in the next meeting or the meeting after that.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have any more comments? Do we have any comments or questions from the public? Okay, we have a motion and a second, and let's have a roll call vote.
Director Dye?
Aye.
Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Penrose?
Aye.
Director Roddick?
Aye.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Chair Slater Carter?
Yes. Thank you, everyone. This has been a tough break in the line, and I'm glad we have such competent staff with good relationships with contractors. Moving right along then to item C, review and authorize general manager to issue request for proposal, an RFP, to provide design services for the Sam Montara Force Main Rehabilitation Project.
Thank you. So as indicated in the last agenda item, we had a pipeline break on the Sam's Montara Force Main near Valimar, and we went ahead and fixed the pipeline to about 850 linear feet. So this entire stretch of Sam's Montara Force Main is about 16,750 linear feet. Approximately 2,500 linear feet was replaced in 2015, and 850 linear feet was replaced currently. So these replacements were basically replacing the existing ductile iron pipe with HDPE. So the balance of about 13,400 or 13,395 to be precise still needs to be designed and replaced. And those are actually made of ductile iron, and those are pretty old ductile iron pipelines which were installed way back in probably the 70s. So in a meeting with the board, it was decided that we should go out for an RFP. And this RFP was actually prepared in conjunction with the engineers from 3 member agencies. We had Mars from City of Half Moon Bay, Pippin representing MWSD, John Rayner representing GCSD. And we had several discussions, and a couple of which went on to a few weeks. And finally, we arrived at this RFP, and this is ready to go out and sent out to qualified engineering consultants. We also have, incidentally, all the 3 engineers from the agencies available with us today in this meeting. We have Mars, John Rayner, and Pippin also amongst us. I had requested them to be present at this meeting. So thank you to each one of you all. And we are here to answer any questions that public or board may have.
Thank you. So do we have any questions or comments from the board first? Director Penrose.
You're muted.
Yeah,
Director
we can't
Penrose, you're
hear you.
muted.
You. The city maintains that these costs aren't the city's responsibility under the JPA. This is a replacement project. It's not a mere operations and maintenance, for which the city would pay 60% based on its flows of the plant. Despite the title on the agenda and the staff report, the proposed scope of work clearly demonstrates that it's a replacement of the Montara Force main.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Thank you. Director Dye.
I just want to say I'm very pleased that all the agency engineers are in support of this project. I think that's great, and I am prepared to. I guess I'm making motions, but we can make a motion to authorize the issuance of the RFP for the for design services for the San Montara Force Main Rehabilitation Project. Thanks. And I don't agree that it's. I believe it's a SAM obligation. Thanks.
Director Rudda.
Yeah, so I just want to follow up on what Director Penrose was saying. The city is prepared to move forward with the RFP. It's very important for us to maintain our facilities and protect the environment. But we are going to approve it at any cost under protest, as we've had previously for projects related to the IPS. We just want to point out that the city is not prepared to support having any of the consultants that prepared the conditions assessment do the work on this next phase. And we think it would avoid potential conflicts of interest and would ensure a proper arm's length, as there may be liability issues associated with the conditions assessment. So we think the RFP should be revised to clarify this limitation, that any of the three consultants who prepared the conditions assessment and reviewed the conditions assessment should not apply, should not proposal.
Thank you. Director Clark.
I would like to note that the city of Half Moon Bay wants to twist the JPA to their purposes at every event, and they're saying we don't feel the city is responsible under the terms of the JPA. And then, so that means we should strictly follow their interpretation. And then they say we'll pay this under protest. And there is no function in the JPA for a protest support for any kind of payments. So they want it both ways. And well, we've been to court about this already. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Clark. Attorney Jeremy, sorry, I'm looking at the name behind you.
That's okay. Happens all the time. Just a couple of thoughts. One, at this point, the action is only to issue the RFP. So, and I mean, whatever the ongoing litigation, I don't think there's any harm at such time as the contract is awarded. The city can certainly, if they wish, note that they're paying under protest, and it'll appear in the minutes. They can certainly do that. But anyway, that's, and just a clarification here. So I don't know if we have a substitute motion or I believe there's a motion pending. We'll just need to clean that up before we vote.
Thank you. Director Ruddick.
Yeah, and we're gonna, I think, need to have a discussion as we move forward as to how the applications or the submittals will be reviewed and who's going to make the decisions about to the board. So I think we need to have that discussion at some point. given that under the JPA currently, I know it's subject to litigation, we would pay 60% on flow. It seems to me we would want a bigger role in, reviewing the consultants as well, consistent with our 60% share. I just want to throw that out there, but that's a discussion to happen in the future. And again, yes, it went to Superior Court, but it's now subject to appeal. So that's why we're going to continue our position of approving under protest until this litigation is resolved.
Director Dye.
Yes, I understand that Half Moon Bay doesn't approve of one of the consultants that Sam has used for a long time and has confidence in. I have yet to hear even the slightest reason for their concern. I mean, I hear that Half Moon Bay doesn't want us to choose this particular consultant. They're against them. But it just seems to me that it would be appropriate to, I guess tonight I've heard a little bit, which is that somehow they were involved in the condition assessment, and that may make sense to me. But is it possible at some point to explain? I have respect for, the opinions of Half Moon Bay, but it's a little hard when there's no reason given for a position that they take.
Thank you, Director.
I'm happy to give it. So the condition assessment was wrong. There are holes in the bottoms of those pipes. The conditions, there are clear signals that the condition assessment is wrong. Now I know the engineers are reviewing the data, but it looks to me like it was wrong because, a little more than a year later, we have all these pipes with holes. So I think it's a question as to the data in that condition assessment, which makes it a potential point of litigation by, people who have sued us in the past. So I think that the safest and cleanest thing to do is to have them stay at arm's length, to step aside while all these things are resolved.
Thank you, Director Dye.
Okay, I hear that, but it seems like, wasn't the condition assessment done by an independent outside group that came in and did it? It wasn't done by a local firm. I mean, I don't know that tonight's the night to have this whole discussion. I think we should go forward with the RFP. But if there are issues in evaluating the RFP, I'd like to understand a little better, because it's my understanding that the evaluation and the data was provided by a completely different company, and that the concern is with this local consulting firm. And so I'm a little confused by all this.
So SRT took the data and they wrote the report. They analyzed it and wrote the report. Collected the data, did not write the report. There were actually 3 different people involved, as far as I know.
Okay, maybe somebody could sum that up for us, just so that it's clear what the issue is.
Keishan had done that already at a previous meeting. We can certainly ask him to repeat it. But I'd like to make a few comments.
Can I just say, is there something I missed? I didn't. Well, anyway, go ahead.
Let me say, first of all, with the request to change the standard procedures for how these RFPs will be reviewed. I can't see any particular reason to change it. I am a little concerned about Half Moon Bay's statements about one of the particular people who or agencies that will be bidding on this. And we have to be very careful that we keep reputations of everyone in good standing instead of making accusations. I will say the documents for this final filing by Half Moon Bay are available online. There are public documents through the court, and people are more than welcome to read them. I think Keishan is going to talk about the condition assessment. I will say that it's my understanding from having talked to many engineers that Half Moon Bay is having no storage and dominating the flow into the plant, causing and the stormwater causing severe stresses on the pipes are what broke them. That, along with the saturation and the soft dirt underneath them, and again, I believe the pipe was broken because we need additional storage. Half Moon Bay has repeatedly refused over the last 20-some years to help put in the full $600,000 that the peer review, or 600,000 gallons that the peer review called for. We only have 400,000 in El Granada, and the peer review in the late 90s called for 600,000 gallons. Half Moon Bay has repeatedly refused to put in any wet weather storage on its own, or even to allow SAM to put in wet weather storage. Montera had proposed that SAM could pay for wet weather storage for Half Moon Bay's flows into SAM, and those have been repeatedly hamstrung too. My last comment is that the force main in Montera is a SAM force main located in Montera. It has been a shortcut in language to call it the Montera force main. It is not. It is a SAM force main. So, thank you. Keishan.
Yeah, I'm a little confused because last time the board instructed me to go out for a public bid for RFP. So when I go out for a public bid, I cannot stop consultants from bidding for it. So I'm a little confused as to how we can disqualify somebody from bidding for it, number one. And number two, I don't know if, to the best of my knowledge, as a GM of SAM, I do not know if there's a possible litigation or whatever we said against the consultant, because that consultant had a contract with SAM, not with Montera, not with City of Half Moon Bay, not with GCSD. So if SAM is not putting forward anything, to the best of my knowledge, I know that we are not suing the consultant for anything. Why should we prevent a consultant from bidding for it? Plus, number three, that opens another big worry for me. If in public we are saying that the condition assessment is wrong, which means we are not complying to ERF's consent decree. So we have to start all over again. So maybe the RFP need not be done at all. Let's talk about condition assessment then. I don't even think we should pursue the RFP then. Let's discuss whether we need to do a condition assessment in the next meeting. And then if we decide that it's not required to be done, we can see what needs to be done. If we're treating the document which we have submitted as a part of the consent decree to ERF, if we are questioning that, and if that is wrong, then we need to submit a proper document. Thank you.
Well, we're required to replace the rest of it under the consent decree.
That's correct.
I would be happy to call on Director Ruddick. Thank you, Director Ruddick. Jeremy, you were going to comment?
I probably was out of turn. I probably should have put my hand up. I just, that is true though. I mean, it is part of the consent decree, and we actually did, it wasn't a condition assessment, it was a priority assessment, which I understand to be a little bit less of a, what we were required to do was a priority assessment. SAM went above and beyond that and did a condition assessment. But starting over, given the timelines in the consent decree, is probably, I'm not sure that's viable, but I understand Kishan's point.
Yeah, but the consent decree clearly states that based on the findings of the condition assessment, SAM can move forward. So the conditions of the conditions of the assessment was that we should not replace it. That's why we didn't do it. And this condition assessment was reviewed by their engineer, ERF engineer also. It was reviewed by a third-party engineer. And in a 13,500 feet length of pipeline, we would normally do an audit inspection. We can't possibly do everything, all along the length. And this was a non-destructible inspection. It was not a destructible inspection. If we were to cut pipes and check each one of those lengths, or at least most of the lengths, it would have costed the same as the length of the force main. replacing the length of the force main. That's why common sense tells us that engineers always do an audit inspection. Nobody rips open the entire pipeline and does a destructive inspection. It costs a lot. And this was the best engineering practice followed by a lot of other agencies. So I don't know if anybody wants to question the condition assessment, we can do that, but this was done by a reputed company, and we did 3 different types of inspection. We not only did electromagnetic inspection, we checked the soil inspection at that point of time. We did the ultrasound inspection. We did 3 different types of inspections on the force main. And from the lens, what we audited, we found that they were in good shape. And that's why we went ahead and decided not to replace the entire force main.
Director Dye?
Well, now it seems clear that we need to replace it. It's reached, I have problems with the useful life thing, but it seems as if this pipe is at a point where it needs to be replaced. And we have a proposal approved by all 3 engineers to go for an RFP. I would like to sort of delay this discussion because it sounds as if the focus of the concern is based on the selection of the contractor to do the job, not necessarily, and if we're going to do this, we are under pressure under the consent decree. So here we have a RFP that's been approved by the engineers of all 3 agencies. I'd like to call the question and hope that we could go ahead and approve that going out. And I'd like to see a staff report for the final selection that involves some of these issues that are of concern to Half Moon Bay that at this point I don't quite fully understand. Thanks. So I'm calling the question.
Thank you. So you want the question called? We still have one hand up. Do we have a second on the motion?
We have Director Roddick's hand up. Catherine.
We're prepared to approve the RFP, so I'm prepared to second.
Okay, good.
Thank you. And you have another comment, Director Roddick? Okay, good. Well, the question is called on the approval of this RFP. Let's have a roll call vote.
Director Dye? Director Dye?
Yeah. Can't hear you.
I said yes, yes, yes.
Director Decker?
Now we hear you.
Yes.
Director Penrose?
Aye.
Director Roddick?
Yes.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Chair Slater Carter?
Yes. Motion carries. Moving along to item D, which is update on emergency storm situation and actions taken by SAM to prevent and mitigate harm to SAM facilities. And there's 2 parts. Item 1 is update on the current status of repairs and replacements necessitated by the recent extreme storms and flooding. And 2, board vote per public contract code 22050, section C, to determine by 4/5 vote that there is a need to continue the emergency procurements previously authorized on an emergency basis by the general manager. So do we have questions? I'm sorry, Keisha, if this is your report too. I
Yes.
apologize.
No problem. Thank you. So SAM has experienced major problems due to the winter storms. One was the flooding of the plant adjacent to the Pilar-Sutos Creek. Water coming into the plant and flooding the electrical room and causing a lot of damage to various equipments. And the second was the force main leak on the force main south of Valimar pump station. So a lot of equipment damage has taken place. We are still in the process of compiling the costs, but I have listed down the number of equipments that have been replaced or in the process of being replaced. So we are bringing this to the board to because there's a need to continue the emergency procurements previously, which was authorized on an emergency basis. We are still assessing the complete damage and what all replacements need to be done. And therefore, being brought to the board to continue the emergency procurements. Jeremy, you have your hand raised.
Yes. Okay, good. Unmute. Just a note. This is so this is what we need to basically continue and ratify the emergency procedures. But just a reminder that you're supposed to terminate the emergency action at the earliest possible date the conditions warrant. So the remainder of the emergency action may be completed by giving a notice for bids to let contracts. So if there are additional, and we just saw this with with the RFPs, that's following a competitive bidding process. And so for right now, there was things that needed to get done as part of the emergency, but at such time as there is time and less of an emergency situation, we probably want to transition back to the normal procedures. But in the meantime, for today, the recommendation is to go ahead and provide the authorization because we're still wrapping up some of the emergency procurements.
Okay, let's start with the board. Peter Decker.
I just wonder at what, up to what amount have we now come with our emergency repairs?
I believe put together the amount that we've already paid as invoices plus the POs are in pipeline. We have come close to $1 million.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I see any more? I don't see any other board
Greg?
hands raised.
No.
Direct Guy.
And then Greg, yes.
Do we have any sense of what percentage of those may be covered by insurance at this point?
At this point, we have no idea, but we've submitted everything to the insurance company, and we've had several discussions with them, so they are in the process of assessing it. I have no idea about it.
What do you think?
It's difficult. I don't want to bank on it.
Thank you. Director Ruddock.
Is there a chance that that FEMA might cover some of those costs under the city's application for emergency funding?
Is it a statement or is it a question, Director?
It's a question, yeah.
I'm not sure. I've submitted our application from SAM to FEMA, as well as given all the documents. What I've submitted to the city engineer Mars, and I believe he has also submitted it, that part of it to the county. I think Mars will be able to explain more. He has his hand raised, so I think he's going to answer your question.
Oh, okay. Director Clark.
Oh, hi. Sorry. Since the crisis centering around New Year's happened, and it's been big news around here, I've been asked two seemingly reasonable questions. The first being, how can this happen? Well, my answer to that was, it wasn't just us. Every county in the Bay Area and farther south had big sewer problems, big spills, like hundreds of them. And it's just that the systems are not engineered for that kind of flooding. And so it's not that SAM has been behind the times, but that these things come up and it's pretty much impossible to build for them. The second question was, how much has this cost us so far? And Kishan has just said almost $1 million, which is, I went through the disbursements and I came up with what I thought looked like emergency spending at $506,000. And you put that 447,000 that were just okayed for the contract with Bay Pacific, and now we're at 953,000. So yes, almost $1 million. But the list on page 84 of the agenda, there are A through O listed about things that were damaged and had to be repaired or replaced, but there's no way to tell how much of this has been accomplished yet. So I'd like to see that at the next meeting, if possible. How many of these things have been fixed, and can we then get some kind of estimate for the total cost of this very near disaster? Thanks.
Sure. Director Clark, as I mentioned in the staff report, that we are in the process of compiling the costs associated with the winter storm damage and will be brought to the board later on. Now, in the list A to O, a lot of them have already been included in the disbursements which you already have in the consent agenda. These items have been procured and installed. A lot of them have been done, but you'll get a complete report of it.
I consider that good, very good news. But a lot of this has already been done. Thank you.
Okay, Greg Diegas.
Point of information. I had heard from Kishen that he had submitted his paperwork and then hadn't heard back. So I contacted Supervisor Mueller, and he forwarded my inquiry to the Office of Emergency Services, if I have it correct, and a fellow named Adam Eli wrote me back. He apparently is going to be handling this issue for the county. I don't know why. It appears FEMA didn't contact special districts, but I believe we're past the issue now, Kishen. You now have some traction with FEMA so that we can put that behind us. But I do want to cover a few other things. These were good questions that you all raised. One of them is, will FEMA cover some of these costs? But I think there were more than one thing going on that day, probably four. We naturally had the burst in the IPS, and the question is why? What was the back pressure? We knew on October 25th, 2021, we came within 6 inches of using up all the extra wet weather storage we put on in that year. We didn't put the extra 200,000 gallons we should have back then. We knew that a year ago. The plant overflowed on December 13th and 14th, 2021. And we had over 15 million gallons a day peak flow rate. I met with John Dowdy, and he told me he had a woman, I think her name was Vivian Housen, an engineer who worked for Half Moon Bay, prepare a report, and that they had done a report showing Half Moon Bay couldn't have contributed more than 7 or 7.5 million gallons a day, which would have, by coincidence, been half of the maximum peak flow capacity of the plant. But I never saw the report, and I've asked for it for a year. I don't know if anybody's seen the report. And I do know when I stood there on December 31st and the river had receded and we're past the flows of the river. Now that river went up 100-fold in the course of 2 days, and it went up tenfold from rising tenfold. It went up another tenfold in just a space of a few hours that morning. So to me, that's not a bunch of trees blocking the mouth of the river or a king tide. That's a surge of an enormous amount, a tenfold increase in a river that was already tenfold flowing more than normal. Something was going on upstream there. And I think we need to look at root causes, and I hope we can get FEMA or this board to do an assessment of it. The other thing is when the flows had gone down, and we got the tour of the plant. Debbie, I think you were there with me. I know I ran into Catherine. I looked at the flow meter. This is hours after the peak. And the flows from the north had been shut off. There was nothing coming from the IPS, which is why it was backing up and overflowing in El Granada, Moss Beach, and Montera. And it was reading 11.5 MGD. So that says there might have been an error with John Dowdy's analysis, but it certainly says we don't know where 11.5 MGD is coming from. And I don't know how long it went on for. The flow in the graph doesn't go on for several days. But if I remember correctly, the peak daily flow of the plant can handle is 9 MGD. And so we were 25% above that without the river. So I think we really need an assessment. And I don't know whether it's our engineers or an independent study or that group you've already hired, was it integral to do the study? We really need to get an explanation of the various causes at work here, because there's more than one thing going on, in my opinion. And of course, it was quite severe. So that would be my request. Let's take a look and get an assessment, whether FEMA pays for it or not, of everything that went wrong, because then we can figure out what the mitigation is. Right now, I don't think we know enough to know what the full scope of the problem was. And I think we have a combinatorial situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Max, and I apologize, please pronounce your last name for me.
Hi, no worries. Miles, Virginia. I'm the interim public works director and city engineer for Half Moon Bay. Hope you guys can hear me okay. And I apologize if there's any background noise. I've got the little kids tonight. I just want to make a comment with regards to the Department of Emergency Management, which used to be the OES folks. As Mr. Diegas mentioned, I also received a contact from DEM that the plant's costs are part of what is being considered as far as the damage assessment. It doesn't mean that funding will be there, but it'll be submitted with every other damage response funding that other jurisdictions receive because of the state of emergency. So I just wanted to share that. I'll just make a couple of comments with regards to with any assessments. We are working on our collection system master planning, and at some point we will be bringing that forward. It's not quite ready, and the analysis and the information that was shared previously was probably too early to really determine. And what I would say is that, as Mr. Diegas mentioned, we do have some significant concerns outside of just the collection systems. I think the potential of groundwater intrusion is something that's of concern that folks have witnessed and seen on site. But yeah, I think long-term, we will need to look at it in a little bit more detail. But for the purposes of the emergency response, I'm hopeful that we can get the funding from FEMA through the Department of Emergency Management, and we'll continue doing our due diligence to make sure that's part of the equation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And do we have any more comments? Oh, Barbara.
I just do want to thank Half Moon Bay and the folks there for taking the lead in helping coordinate with FEMA, because I know SAM as a JPA really can't apply on its own. So thank you, Half Moon Bay, for taking the lead on that.
Good. Max, your hand is up? Kishan, do you have any more information to give, or we need to have a motion on the of the emergency funding?
I think we can go ahead with the motion.
So moved.
Okay.
Seconded.
Thank you, Ruddick. And who's the second?
Peter.
Peter Decker. Thank you for the second vote. And this is to determine by a 4/5 vote that there is a need to continue the emergency previously authorized on an emergency basis by the general manager. So let's have a roll call.
Director Dye?
Aye.
Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Penrose?
Aye.
Director Ruddock?
Aye.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Chair Slater-Curran?
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Moving on. Oh, we now have the consent agenda item. Peter Decker's questions on monthly review and expense report for the period ending December 31, 2022.
It's actually the aging report that I'm referring to, and it could be already out of date since it was as of the 31st of December. I was just wondering why there are 60 to 90 days outstanding from the various agencies.
Yes. Peter, number one, it's the December report because the January meeting got canceled, and therefore the December report is there. Typically, we have these aging reports and all these stuff, all the other financials in the second meeting of every month. So the one ending January, you'll get it in the next meeting. That's why you're seeing the December meeting there. And then this is outstanding for 60 to 90. We must have just got it at that point of time. So they are pretty much regular, whatever you indicated, two agencies. I think you indicated Half Moon Bay and GCSD in 60 to 90 days. They're pretty regular, and this is just during, I think in the month of December, there was a slight delay with the holidays and all that. We didn't get anything in the mail. So it was probably because of that. So you will see the updated aging report in the second meeting in February.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and there's no concern of getting any invoices paid from any of the agencies as of now.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought we had 10 items. And so Jeremy, we vote on item.
Can't hear you well, Catherine.
Were you moving on to attorney's report? Is that where you were?
No, we didn't. I don't think we approved item C. We pulled it, so we need to have a vote on item C on the consent agenda. Thank you.
Correct, yes.
So,
okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Dye?
Aye.
Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Penrose?
Aye.
Director Roddick?
Aye.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Chair Slater Carter?
Yes. So moving on to general manager's report.
Yep, so the package is in, the entire report is in your packet. And I also wanted to give information about 2 items as a part of the manager's report. First one was staff attended a meeting at CWEA on Friday, where a lot of wastewater agencies attended the meeting. And one of the items on the agenda was felicitating storm heroes, they call it, who braved the storm and was able to take care of it working long hours. So we participated in it, and one of our staff, Aaron, made a very nice presentation. And we also found out that besides us, as Matthew was mentioning, there are a lot of other agencies who had similar problems. There are about 3 or 4 agencies who presented the case, and that was an interesting forum to discuss such issues. And the second item I'd like to brief the board as well as the public was that we had an inspection by Regional Water Quality Control Board. Actually, he informed us on Thursday night and decided to come on Friday morning to see the SAM plant and wanted to know how the storm hit us and what we had done. So he was amazed, or he was rather stunned by how much flooding had occurred at SAM on December 31st. And he did make a statement in writing saying it is a testament to the expertise and quick action of your operators and staff that there was not a major upset at the treatment plant. He was very happy that we did not have any plant upset in spite of such large flows and with the storm flows coming into the plant. So that was very nice of him. He made a nice comment. I just wanted to share this with the board and public.
Thank you. I see questions from Director Dow.
Well done. I think having a good reaction from Regional Water Quality Control Board is very much in our favor. I wanted to just comment on agenda, which is the manager's report. And I hadn't realized this, but it looks as if you all had done some work. It says we did some work on the southwest edge of the property early. Entering the facility. And I had not been aware of that. And I just wanted to note that preparation work that was really helpful in perhaps mitigating some of the impacts of the storm. So I thought that was a good thing that I hadn't known about. And then I also wondered, is there any chance you can bring up page 100 of the agenda for us to look at? Because there's an amazing graph on that page.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys, but I love these graphs. But
oh, you want to bring it up on the screen?
Yes, is that possible? Without too much trouble? It's the percent distribution for December 2022.
Let's see.
I can share it, Kishan, if you want me.
You can? Okay, go ahead. Let me give you control then.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeremy. If it's easier for you, go ahead.
How's that?
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
I don't know other people. I think there's people in the community who like numbers, and look at this graph. So blue is the Half Moon Bay inputs to the plant. Red is GCSD, green is MWSD, and purple is the plant rain. And look at the way that graph goes up. It's also interesting that once the rain starts rising, the GCSD and Montera's amounts drop considerably on the 31st, but they don't go down to zero, which I thought was interesting. So I just thought this was quite the graph. Can we next month get a graph that shows December and January together? I know you give us all these years and so forth, but I think it would be really interesting to see this graph for December and January on one page.
Okay. We can try and see how, so that doesn't so that the graph doesn't get overwhelmed. Let's see what best we can do. If it gets crowded, and it might be hard to decipher, but we'll see what best we can do.
And it's difficult to understand a little bit because it's percents on the left and amount of rain in inches on the right. And with the amount of rain that was coming in, I'm not sure that purple line shouldn't have gone even higher. But then you also had the rain from the liquid from the river coming in. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I wanted to give everybody a chance to look at this graph. So thanks.
Can I pipe in for a second?
Yeah.
The graph you're looking at, the percent distribution, you have to keep in mind that both the Montera pump station we had shut down and the Portola station was reduced. So that's going to show a difference like what you're seeing on that graph there.
Right. It didn't go down to zero though. Perhaps by the next on the first, it was down to zero. I mean, it looks as if there was still about, I don't know, 15, 16%. It doesn't look like particularly the contribution from GCSD went down all that much.
Yeah, keep in mind, Barbara, that, sorry, Tim, keep in mind, Barbara, that when we shut off Portola, we still get flows from the Frenchman's Creek as well as from the San Pablo lift station, which belongs to GCSD.
Right. Yeah, but this does show, particularly Montera, going down dramatically. So just a very interesting graph. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Decker.
We can go back to regular.
Should I stop sharing? Okay, gotcha.
Yes, please.
I'm coming back to Kishan's report, the update February 3 to February 9, and I'm referring to the two issues with Peninsula Pump. And it says that incorrect pumps were delivered or installed and needed to be returned. Who was responsible for ordering the right pumps? And are we paying for this now that we ordered the incorrect pumps, or was this a mistake by Peninsula Pump?
February 3rd, which report are you talking of, Peter?
About your report dated February 3rd to the 9th. There is one issue there that says, met with Peninsula Pump at Portola Pump Station to return incorrect pumps, which were ordered for distillery. And then further down, it says, met with Peninsula Pump at the distillery for attempted new pumps installation. And then it says between brackets, wrong pumps. So the question here is, as a financial man, is who is paying for that? Or is it Peninsula Pump mistake, or was it our mistake? Because those pumps are pretty expensive.
Hey, I can pop in on this.
Go ahead, Tim.
So we had worked with Peninsula Pump in Shape. So it's kind of between Peninsula Pumping Shape. It's not on us. It's not on the district. It's between the two vendors that I'm not sure where they got their wires crossed, but it was between the Shape and Peninsula Pump vendor.
Well, I'm glad it falls back to them.
Yeah, it's on them to figure it out.
Great, thank you.
So I believe, Peter, you're talking about the weekly report to the board that I submit.
Yes.
It's not in the board packet because I'm not able to relate it from the board packet. It's from the weekly report to the board.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's why I was not able to relate it. I didn't have those documents with me. nevertheless, anyway, Tim has answered the question.
Tim has answered it, yes.
Catherine, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Okay. No.
Okay.
There we
okay.
go. All right, back to regular. Let's move on to the attorney's report, please.
Hey, yes, thank you. Real quick, just a couple of, one item is, I was under the impression, until I was disabused of that impression earlier tonight, that there was going to be legislation that would potentially address some of the concerns raised by Greg Diegues and others earlier about continuing some form of AB 361 virtual participation. There was going to be a bill that potentially would provide some relief for regional agencies, which SAM is a regional agency. And it was going to be carried by Blanca Rubio, who actually was the sponsor of, I should say, the author of AB 2449, which provides some help, but not too much. But I was just updated that Ms. Rubio declined to carry the bill, but that there are two others pending. So there's still hope yet. I don't know if Director Ruddick has any more update on that, but the person who I'm talking to is with, she's the legislative and regulatory person for, her name's Sharon Green, and she's with LA County Sanitation. So I'm going to touch base with her and see what, if anything, there is. There's two bills pending. I don't know if they fit within the framework that Sam would want, but I'll get an update and I'll provide to the board if there's an opportunity to potentially be a sponsor, write a letter of support, anything like that. I will make sure that opportunity is given to the agency. So that's one issue. And then the other was, I wanted to talk about just on the disaster relief, and we've already touched on that. Just my colleague and partner, Ash Parayu, is he is assisting a number of other folks in California with disaster relief and obtaining funding. I did put him in touch with Kishen, and I think he's going to try to meet with Kishen and potentially assist. Certainly what the city has done is already, very helpful. And I told Ash that whatever he can do, to potentially assist Sam to augment the city's efforts, because the city, cities and counties are kind of where a lot of the action is, just because they, under the Emergency Services Act, they have a lot of the authorities and are able to access some of the funding. But to the extent that Sam could participate in that process and potentially put down requirements for some of the for the extensive damage that's occurred, Ash is prepared to assist with that as may be helpful. That is all.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to hear that we're not the only ones making this concern about family members and others who have immunity issues, and I am glad the legislature is listening to this. It's a good thing. I hope they get it right. Moving on, director's reports.
Catherine, I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Matthew. Yes.
It's been mentioned several times in the last few months about what's covered by insurance, and we're all certainly glad that Sam has insurance. My question is, whose responsibility is it to contact the insurance companies and get a determination on what they will and will not cover? And what is the procedure there? And is council involved in this?
Kish, you want to answer, or you want me?
Good, Jeremy. I've already interacted with the insurance, but I'll be glad to hand it over to our council if you think the council needs to take care of it. I have no problems. I've got
Council's not
papers already
volunteering.
full, and I'll be glad to pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah, typically that's done through the agency staff. I mean, was it CSRMA? There's a risk pooling, and so to the extent that I need to look at the scope of the coverage provided, or if any coverage is denied, that's probably where I would get involved. Kitchen, are you hearing anything about kind of what kind of coverage they're going to provide, if anything?
No, at this time we've given them all the required data for them to assess. I've given them quotations, invoices, pictures, reports, everything. So I haven't heard back from them.
I will add that every time I get an attorney involved, the other side gets an attorney involved, and it gets very expensive and problematic. So I'm sure Keishan has lots of experience in handling this.
Well, I will add, I think most of us have had this experience that every time I've dealt with an insurance company, I was really dissatisfied with their first answer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you keep the attorney in the background.
Right. I just wondered how deep in the background is he still?
I think one thing that we got going against us right now is they're probably pretty busy with claims, just because there was so much extensive damage. So I wouldn't take the non-responsiveness so far as any indication. They're just probably trying to dig out.
Yeah. Good. Moving on to Ed, do we have any report from directors? Seeing none. Topics for future board consideration. We have that as an attachment. Hearing none, we will convene in closed session. It's 8:19 on my clock. Let's convene back at 8:25.
Just in case you want to go straight into it, it's going to be a real short closed session. But
oh, okay. Well, what's the sense of the board?
Go for it.
Let's do the closed session.
Okay, let's just move right into closed session then. And so we will say goodbye to PCTV, Max, Susan, Michelle, Gabriel, Aaron, George, and Tim. And thank you for attending.
Thanks all. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night and have a pleasant
Good night,
tomorrow.
everybody.
Thank you too.